Welcome to Lesson 10 in mySci's Unit 8, Putting on a Show with Light and Sound. In this lesson, students will answer the question, how do we interact with darkness? Students will figure out that objects can be seen only if light is available to illuminate the object or if the object gives off its own light. In the engaged portion of this lesson, you'll start off by explaining to students that you've learned a lot about sound, but now it's time to learn about light when we're thinking about putting on a show with light and sound. Students should turn to their student journal page, light source, or reflector. Before starting the student journal page, take time to define what a light source is and what a reflector is. An object that is a light source is producing its own light. Objects that are reflectors have light bouncing off of them for us to see. On the student journal page, students will circle the objects that are light sources and put an X through objects that are reflectors. When students are finished, go over the answers. As students make claims about an object being either a light source or a reflector, have them provide evidence for their claim. Use the answer key in the teacher pages to help guide your conversation. You'll start the explore part of this lesson by asking students, what can we see in the dark? Students should reflect about a time when they were in the dark, what they were doing, and what they could see and what they couldn't see. Allow them to turn and talk to a partner and record answers on chart paper. Follow up the conversation with another question, asking students, can we see colors in the dark? You'll then pass out books to different pairs of students. These books should have both words and colorful pictures. Have students take a look at the pages of the book with the lights on in the classroom. Next, make the classroom as dark as possible. Then have students look back at that book and see what the differences were between seeing the pages in the light and seeing the pages in the dark. Have students share the differences they saw either with a partner or as a whole group. In the explain portion of this lesson, you'll ask students, what do we need to see? You'll then show students a video about the properties of light. Have the conversation about how they needed a light source to see the book. The light from the light source traveled to the book, reflected off the book, and then that light traveled to their eyes, and that's how they were able to see the different images and words in the books that they were looking at. It's harder to do that in the dark because there's not as much light reflecting off of the book. Tell students that they can't see objects unless that object is illuminated or lit up. In the elaborate portion of this lesson, you'll need to get the foil and the flashlights out of the mySci kit. You'll ask students, what will happen if we shine the light on foil? How can we use the flashlight to illuminate objects in the dark? You'll then turn off the classroom light and have students shine their flashlight on the foil. Use the words like light source and reflector as students are exploring how the light interacts with the foil. Then pose the question to the students, what would happen if we put our hand in front of the flashlight? Take time to demonstrate how to make a shadow while you're pointing the flashlight towards a wall and putting your hand in between the flashlight and the wall. Tell students that shadows are dark areas created when something comes between a light and a surface. They're going to use this information to help them create their puppets in their shadow puppet show. At the end of the elaborate section, ask students, what happens to shadows in the dark? Why can we not see shadows in the dark? Allow students to share their answers with a partner and then share out to the whole class. In the evaluate portion of this lesson, you'll start off by asking, what can we see in the dark? Have students turn to the student journal page, light and dark. Pass out crayons for students to use with this activity. On one side, have the students draw what they could see in the light, and on the other side, ask students to draw what they could see in the dark. Prompt students to label their sketches with the words light source, darkness, reflect, illumination, and shadow. There is an example teacher answer key for this journal page in the teacher pages. By the end of this lesson, students should be able to answer the question, how do we interact with darkness? Students have described how light is needed to see, and have discovered how they can make shadows for their shadow puppet show.